Your typical podcast. Thank you for listening to Your Typical Podcast. My name is Donnie, as all of you know, and today I'm super excited because I am joined by my friend Yadira on the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to dive into today's topic with you.
I loved how this kind of idea came about. I know we went to dinner, we were talking about all the things, and I don't know. As I get more and more people on the podcast, I think it's been really fun to kind of connect with friends about things that are one important to them, but actual like happening in their lives too. So I'm excited. It's gonna be like a deep conversation, so I'm excited to kind of get into it. So the first question I always ask people on the podcast is, how do we know each other? So do you want to tell everyone how me and you know each other?
Yeah, of course. So Donnie was a close friend of my brother Andres. And in March of 2022, my brother passed away very suddenly and unexpectedly. And I'm sure you can give a little more insight into your relationship and your story with him. But I had known about you from hearing stories, and I think there was a few like Facebook posts where you were tagged. But we really didn't come into each other's lives until my brother's funeral. You were one of a group of friends who came out to California for his funeral. And so, yeah, after that, we've just kind of connected and maintained communication. And we've been able to actually meet up for lunch and dinner, which has been really fun, even though we're in two completely different states. But yeah, that's kind of where we know each other from.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out where people always say it like death brings people together. Usually people who would have never like kind of crossed paths, like similar to you. I think I heard of you because Andres talked about like his family and like his siblings a lot, but we were probably in the same room multiple times. I don't think we ever met. Because I know graduation, I always see pictures. I'm like, I was there, and like
Yeah.
I don't know, and like I have pictures of Andres at graduation, but like I don't think we ever. And it was so much going on, so it makes sense. But I was at college with Andres, and we became really good friends. I think it was my sophomore year of college because he started Stretch then, and then just kind of it grew and grew. I felt like we became like the closest of friends his junior and senior year. So I did a extra year of college. So my senior and super senior year, because I kind of got him wrapped up in a theater program with me. So we were spending a lot of time together. And then after we graduated, we kind of had a shorter stint of living with each other. And then I got him a job at my job. So then we worked together. So I felt like I was seeing him all the time. It became like really tight. So obviously the news of him passing away was super sad, and we'll get into all those things. But I guess in a way, like I'm thankful that he kind of brought us together. And we've talked about this a lot, but it's interesting because he probably would be like smiling, like, oh my gosh, my sister and Donnie are talking. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. For sure. Maybe a little upset of like, wow, you're taking my friends. But I think we've talked about it before about how grateful I am for anybody who was a part of his life who continues to like let us in and update each other on live. I mean, I follow a few folks on like Instagram and stuff. And so it's a nice connection to have. And with you, it's been wonderful to meet each other when we're in the same city and just be able to maintain that relationship.
I agree. I feel like it like helps me remember him. Obviously, I remember him mostly positive ways anyway, but like I almost get to know a new side of him that I didn't know. Being back in your hometown and like meeting some of his high school friends, and I think like just meeting your family and all of that. I think that was like really, I don't know, like the grief part was hard, and I'm sure it was hard on both ends. I think in general, grief is just hard. Like, I think honestly, that's the topic. Like, grief is hard and like getting through things. But the light at the end of the tunnel was for me, like that weekend that we spent with you guys in California was like, I don't know, it was something about it where it was a lot of tears, very sad. It was not a fun time, but I feel like I got so much from it just by doing that. So always grateful for your family just for like having us and inviting us and making us. I even remember the day of his funeral. I think you came up to us being like, you guys sit on the left side because your family, you're going to in and out with us. And like, that was just really sweet because I don't know, he was our family, and like all of us loved him so much. So that was good. to know. So I just wanted to ask the question. I think in general, we could talk about Andres, but also in general, why do you think grief is so hard for people?
That is a great question. I think there's a million things that make it hard. I mean, you've experienced grief, and if it's not someone close to you, you experience grief in so many ways throughout life of like you lose people, you lose things, you lose experiences. I think for me, one of the hardest things is just how much of a unique experience it is. I think I kind of think of it as like a snowflake of like it's just one of a kind and you're not really going to find a replicate of it. Even, in my circumstance with my younger brother, we both lost our older brother. We knew Andres in a similar way as a sibling, but he was a different older brother to him than he was to me. And so grief in that journey is so different and is so unique, and that can make it feel really isolating and really lonely. And almost, I know we'll get into it a little bit more of humor and how it becomes kind of like a lifeline during some of those tough moments. But I think it even kind of became like a way for me to continue to feel like myself in the moments where I didn't. It was kind of a way to hold on to something that was familiar during a time that was so unprecedented. And so, yeah, it also helps build connections between people. And I think grief being isolating and lonely and just difficult to experience on your own, having something like humor to connect with folks can just make it a little bit more bearable.
I agree. I think like, and I think everyone knows this, but grief is so non-linear. Like, it's not just like even like I feel like people think like, oh, you start at the bottom and then it gets better and better and better. And in reality, like it's more so like some days you do feel better, some days you forget, some days you kind of move past it. It's not you don't it's not like it's not there, but it's like something that you just like aren't carrying at the moment, but then you get home and you're like, oh nope, that grief is right there where I left it on the bed.
Mhm.
Or and it's like some days are hard days, some days are easy days. And I even remember like someone telling me a long time ago where it's like it's not that it gets better because you don't feel better. Like you never feel better about someone you love not being here anymore. It just feels
Mhm.
a little more easy to kind of move past it. I did like the idea about the humor part though, because I think that's interesting. I think people sometimes may get turned off by like humor. And I actually remember, I guess this is 3 years ago at this point. I remember you saying like, people come over our house are probably like, wow, they don't seem that sad. But it's like, you feel sad, of course. But it's like, as people, how do you get through? And sometimes people joke. Sometimes people want to laugh just to like laugh to keep from crying. I feel like that's such a typical phrase, but like so true.
Mhm.
When did you think the first time you were like, I need to laugh unless I'm gonna explode?
Well, I think I can even think back to that first time in the hospital. So he was admitted to the hospital and he spent about 3 days, I think. And right away we got a call. My dad and I got on a red eye and we flew to Wisconsin to figure out what was going on because we didn't even know really what was happening at that point. We just knew that he was in the hospital. And we came in and things were really scary, really yeah, just really scary. It just felt so sudden and out of nowhere, which it was. And I remember we spent like half of the day with his roommate and best friend in the cafeteria of the hospital. This was still during when COVID was still impacting the way hospitals were working. And so we were just sitting there, we weren't even eating, and we just spent like a whole 3, 4 hours just talking about Andres and sharing stories, sharing his antics, like sharing the silly, dumb things that he would do. Because it was like you mentioned, I could give an insight to them that they didn't know about childhood Andres, and they were giving me an insight that I didn't know about, which was college Andres. And so we were laughing a lot in those moments. It was almost like in those moments, it was really scary. We knew things were bad, but there was still a sliver of hope to hold on to. And like that laughter and those jokes almost made it seem like that hope was something we could really latch onto because we would be even saying, like, I remember he had to have like half of his head shaved off. And we were making fun of him because he looked terrible and just half shaved. And we were just like, wow, he's really gonna hate the way he looks when he wakes up. And so those jokes and that laughter really helped us, I think, find hope and kind of latch onto that in the best way that we could.
Yeah, I definitely like have been in a similar situation. I know I had a close friend pass away when I was 18, so pretty young, right after high school. And distinctly remember like the very first day he passed away, like obviously I'm sad, my friend is sad. It's actually so there are three of us that were really close friends and he passed away on her birthday. So like we're trying like to like do something. It's her birthday, but we're all sad and like someone randomly sends me a Snapchat, like, oh my gosh, I lost my earring, LOL. And I like literally like my first thought was to respond, well, I lost my friend. So I went and
Yeah.
like just to like one, obviously I think for me it was awkward. So I needed to do something to like make it
Mhm.
less awkward, at least less, tough. Because like obviously the feelings you feel are tough. They're not easy. They don't go away. And like something about a simple laugh can like kind of get you not through it, but like just kind of again, like almost I feel like Andres was such a silly person. Like I feel like we laughed all the time. I think he would throw out little quips. It was just him. So even like the day that I found out he passed away was from your story. And I actually like can look back at it and kind of laugh at like how it happened. Not because of him passing away, but just me and what I was doing at the moment. Because that night I was feeling sad, obviously. I think I was planning to come to Milwaukee the next day. So it just happened to all kind of move a little quickly, more quickly than anyone thought.
Mhm.
Um, that night I think I booked a ticket on the bus the next day. So I was like, okay, the morning time, I think it was like 7 a.m. I had a bus right to Milwaukee. But I was like, oh, I'm so hungry. I didn't really eat today because I've been thinking about this all day. So I ordered some curry from like an
Mhm.
Indian restaurant and it was so usually they give you the spice level 1 through 5, and I really like spicy. So it's like I'm gonna try 4 this time. I usually get 2 or 3. So
Mhm.
like so I get the curry and I'm like eating it and I'm like, this is way too spicy for me. Like I'm trying my best, like my eyes are watering, my nose is running, like my mouth is super hot. Our friend Cynthia actually called me as I'm eating this curry and she told me. And like I remember like and it's just so funny how like the human body works because like obviously I was heartbroken in the moment and I
Mhm.
couldn't even process it because my mouth was so hot. So like I remember being like, Cynthia, can I call you back in like 5 minutes? And I like have to drink water and I'm like, no, that's is actually really happening, but my mouth is like on fire. And the next day, even talking to another friend about it, I was like, honestly, I think he would find that funny that like I was suffering with my mouth hot, but I'm hearing that he passed away and I'm like crying. But the only thing I can really actually think of is like, gosh, but my mouth is so hot right now. I need to get ice cream or water or something.
Mhm.
So just funny how that works because what are you gonna do? And I think that's kind of what it all comes down to, like laughing through grief. Like, what else can you do?
For
I was
sure.
gonna say, like, I know you talk a lot about how humor has helped you. Do you think people judge you for using humor as a tool to cope?
I think I'm sure there may be some people, even in my family, that were just kind of like, "Oh, she's laughing a little too much during these times." And also, when I say like humor helps you through grief, I never want it to seem like I'm just laughing at like everything as I'm going through the journey, especially those first few weeks when, there's funeral arrangements and your brain doesn't even, like you mentioned, capture what really has happened and things just move so quickly. So it was like there's moments that were very serious and very hard, very painful, very sad. And yet in those moments there was also glimmers of like joy that brought laughter or spaces for jokes to be made, even jokes that I thought he would think were funny. And so I also think I started figuring out like where those jokes would land, with who they wouldn't, like certain people that I know, like, I couldn't crack a joke because, it was just they were experiencing it and going through it in a different way than I was. So I'm sure there were some folks that maybe, like you mentioned, were like, "Oh, wow, they must be doing great," like, they're laughing and all of that, or maybe even judging some of the jokes that we would make. But I think ultimately for me, it was really, like, important and helpful, and so I kinda stuck to making sure that I wouldn't, like, feel bad, that that was my way to cope with some of these really difficult moments.
Mhm. I mean, like we said before, like, sometimes it's all you can do. I
Yeah,
also feel like I think it would be weird to put yourself in the place of judgment based on, like, how other people grieve, because like,
yeah.
there's no right or wrong way, there's no timeline, there's no, like, "In about 6 months, you should feel fine." Like we said, like, sometimes it's like I mean, what, it's been almost 3 years now? Or did it just pass
Yeah,
3 years?
it just
Um,
passed years.
and it's like, some days I still, like, think about him, like, literally pops up in my mind, or, like, I'll do something with the JCC where I'm like, first person that pops in my mind is him, and I'm like, "Oh, fuck, like, that's sad that he's not there." Like, that's
Mhm,
it just I remind myself of it. Even the other day, I was working on a musical theater reel, and there's a bunch of videos of me and him because we did this one musical together. And in the video, I laughed at it because it was funny when it happened and like afterward. But so we were singing this song and I put my leg out too far, more than I normally did. And we were at the edge of the stage, like he's coming up and he trips over my leg
mhm.
and almost falls off the stage. So I grab his like the back. So in the video, I'm grabbing him, and then we just look at each other and we both just start laughing. And I'm like, that's so silly. And again, like it's not anything big, but it's like, wow,
Mhm,
that's like a good moment that I want to remember. And I could laugh at him tripping him, even the fact that, despite that he's not even here
mhm.
anymore to kind of commentate because he laughed in the moment. He would have laughed at that. And I will say about Andres that I think I always say to everyone is like, I really hardly ever seen him not in a joyous mood. Like I think I can recall like one single time where someone like really pissed him off. And again, like I knew that they really pushed him to his limit because he was definitely such a taker. Like he's like, okay, like very, very understanding, very give people the benefit of the doubt. So that
Mhm.
specific day, I'm like, oh, like they pissed him off because his face, you could just tell that he was just not happy. But he's always happy. Like all what I knew him since 2016. So all however many years, I can't do math, but however long I knew him, always happy, always joyous. So like whenever I laugh, at least at this situation, like I'm always like think I'm honoring him in that moment, if that makes sense. Of like, oh, he would laugh at this. Like this would be his hair half cut, and like he wake up like that would actually be funny to him. Like it
Yeah,
would be.
yeah, no, for sure. I think I also maintain, and even amongst, like, my family, especially with my younger brother, like, we maintain him as a part of our sibling relationship still through the jokes, through making fun of him still, even if he's not here anymore. Like, if there's something that he did that we're reminded of that was funny, or like he did that was dumb, like we bring it up, and it's like it's a way that we kind of keep him still at that center of our relationship. And so that's like been really important to me, that it made me feel connected to him when he was here, but it also helps me be connected to him now that he's not here.
Hmm. Do you think that? Because I guess like depending on the person, like I could imagine like if it's a person who passed away who was a lot more serious, then you might not joke. Because again, like I guess in my head, I'm like for instance, my stepdad passed away shortly after Andres, and I don't think I would ever joke about his death in the same way because
Mhm.
knowing him, he wouldn't find it funny. Like, so do you think the person kind of plays a part into like where the humor goes, how much you can say or do?
Oh, I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. And I think I've been lucky in that we share a lot of our sense of humor, especially our dark sense of humor, which was something that like I definitely faltered on a little bit more.
Mhm.
And it actually even became almost like a game, a connection to him in those early months of like, what's like the darkest joke I can think of, and like which ones would he think were really, really funny? Because I think Andres would sometimes have like a pretty dark, like weird sense of humor. And so I think it definitely has to do with the person. I think for him, because he was so joyous and happy and laughter and would be, a jokester with everybody, like I think it does feel like I'm honoring him and continuing that. And I think it makes it easier for me to feel that connection to him because that's how I remember him to be.
Yeah, and also, like, I guess in a way, you feel like I know the death was sad, and it is sad, and every day I think about it, I'm like, "That's rough." But in
Mhm,
a way, it's like there were a lot of like, most of my memories with Andres are happy. Like,
mhm,
most of them are having a good time, are, laughing, like, just really enjoying life and each other and friendship and all of that. And it feels like almost silly to negate all of that just based on the fact that he's not here anymore.
yes,
There's like so much time, so many memories, so many good time. Honestly, so many good times where it's like, why would I it almost would feel like doing him a disservice. And like, obviously, the sadness comes. And I think something I always think about is I don't know if he will want me to feel sad, if that makes sense.
mhm,
Such a humble person. I mean, at least how I knew him. I even remember when we were all in California and like someone brought up the idea of like, what do you think Andres would be like if he knew that we were all here? And I'm like, well, I think he would be like, go home. Like,
yes,
you guys don't have to come here. Please don't. Like, that's so much work. And it's like, well, of course we would come. Like, there's no, literally, I remember talking to my boss at work being like, so she asked me, she's like, "Do you plan on going to the funeral?" And I'm like, "Well, yes." So like, we need to figure out how this is gonna work. And I
yeah,
remember being like, I mean, this goes without saying, but like, it's not really an option for me not to go. And like, there was like a work event that week, and I remember going the first 2 days and then leaving to come to the funeral. And like, I remember being like, well, I'll do that. Like, I'll come just so I won't leave you high and dry and like kind of set you up for my absence. But there's no
mhm,
way that I'm not gonna be there. And looking back at the funeral, and again, after the sad parts, I remember all of us at In and Out, which I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like, I
yeah,
think we all were smiling and like not crying, which was funny because it was the first time we did that
mhm,
day. And then when we all went to, I think it was your aunt's house maybe, that
yeah,
we all took like a little hike and just like walked around. And I always like, I never posted the picture we all took together, which I don't know if I ever shared it with anyone either. Haha. um but if I look at that picture sometimes, I'm like, we're all smiling. You would never know that we had all been crying the entire day, all
yeah,
sad, all just kind of going through things. But I know that that's what he would want it,
yes.
and that kind of helps me get through just kind of like, the grief and of it all.
Yes, I totally agree, and I think sometimes it makes me mad because I'm like, "Well, I'm the one that has to mourn you, I'm the one that's, like, dealing with your death." But definitely there are moments where, my god, I'm just, like, crying, and it really hits me really, really hard, and it's very painful, and then I think, wow, he's probably like, "Yadira, stop, like, it's not that serious. You don't have to, like, go through all these, like, tough emotions." And so I think while sometimes it's like, well, it's your fault that we're in this situation, I do think it's helpful because it helps me remember, like, how happy of a person he was, and it helps me kinda come back to that a little bit as well.
I agree. Do you ever felt like there was some one time where you're like, oh, this may be a little too dark? Maybe I shouldn't say that.
I'm sure there was plenty of times. I definitely would laugh at a lot of things, and I think something that you mentioned earlier is sometimes you laugh out of awkwardness, and that happens in everyday life. So why wouldn't that happen when you're dealing with a death? But there was a lot of awkward moments where I would kind of just laugh, and I just think wow, this is so unserious and serious at the same time. What's going on? Some examples are when I bought his plane ticket because we transferred his body from Wisconsin to California, and I was, looking at, air flights and, times and where he would land, and I was just like, "This is so funny, he's dead, but I have to buy, a plane ticket for him."
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, well, me either. I just remember being like, "Okay, he's here, but we have to get him to California, how do we do this?" And so figuring all that out is a whole other could be a whole other podcast, but even, I remember I went with my dad to buy his, funeral outfit, and the lady who, rang us up was like, "Oh, what's a special occasion?" And in my head, I was like, somebody's going in the ground, like, it's not a
Yeah.
happy vacation. And even, one that I do remember is, when we saw him for the first time in the open casket. I remember laughing and just being so relieved that, like, they got his skin color right, because
Yeah.
sometimes that can get a little tricky with people of color, and so I was really worried about that. I wanted him to look like him, and so I remember, like, cracking a joke at, like, "Wow, like, they got you right this time." So there's a lot of moments that maybe would feel inappropriate for other people, but they were kind of awkward, and so for me, it was like I was filling them with humor because that was kinda my way of coping through them.
Yeah, I also want to say, like, too, I think one thing that people glance over, and I think it may be just like a person of color thing of like celebrations of life rather than like
Mm.
funerals, sad things. I know, like, for me, like, similar to you, where when my stepdad passed away, there's a lot of things that I had no idea. I had to help my mom a lot, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, like, I guess you would have to go pick out what outfit he's gonna wear. Like, that feels something like, or like, she's like, I want him to get a haircut. Like, oh, you're gonna have to go find a barber
Yeah.
who's gonna want to cut someone's hair who's not here anymore. And it's like all those
Mhm.
things where I'm like, this is silly. Like, it feels silly to buy a plane ticket for someone who, and like being like, no, that's too late. I'll put
Mhm.
him here. He'll take the 7 a.m. flight. It
Yeah.
might be too early. It's
Like
like,
Southwest or Alaska, like, what would he
yeah.
prefer? But he's yeah, it's just so silly and yeah, for sure.
Mhm. So I wrote down a bunch of quotes that I like found online, and I kind of just wanted to get your take, at least some of them. So one thing that I saw today that I was like, okay, this maybe is a, because so originally I was like, this episode can be titled "Laughing at Grief," ha ha ha, humor and grief. But then I saw something where it was like, you're laughing with grief, not at
Mhm.
it. And I don't know. For me, I took away from that, it's like, it's not either or. It's
Mhm.
not like you're sad or you're happy. Again, like, you're feeling like such a mix of all these feelings. So laughter is just something that comes with grief. It's something that kind of is an addition to grief. It's like, okay, this is almost like a mood of grief, if that makes sense. How does
Mhm.
that sentence, laughing with grief, make you feel?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. I think I look at grief as it, like, kind of rewired my brain and opened me up to feeling what I feel is the full range of human emotions, of being able to feel the most profound loss and pain, and also being able to feel genuine joy and laughter and, like, happiness. And so I think it's definitely I think a lot of people also say you learn to live with grief, and so the laughing with grief feels very similar to that, in that it's like kind of like a companion that you're going to have with you for the rest of your life. And you learn to do things with it, almost like a friend who sometimes you don't always like and you don't always want there with you. But there's a lot more of a, I want to say, like, peace to knowing that you can do things alongside your grief instead of it feeling like grief is this monster that's kind of overcoming you, which has taken me a really long time to work through. And it's not like you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, I feel good and I can continue with life. Like, there's a lot that I think it takes to get to that point. But I definitely think I'm at a point now where laughing with grief feels very, very much like my journey for healing, especially.
I love that. Like, you're laughing. Grief is like a companion. I'm gonna write that down because I feel
Mhm.
like that's really deep. Of like, like sometimes, like with friends, you are angry. You're angry at them. You're
Yeah.
sitting next to them and you're upset. Sometimes you're kind of like ambivalent. You're like, you're here, I'm here. We
Mhm.
exist. That's it. Sometimes it's like, okay, we're feeling great. We're gonna laugh. We feel happy today. Sometimes it's like, I feel sad in your company. I'm sad. But it's like, I kind of like the idea of kind of escaping the notion that grief is like a monster or like a burden on your shoulders, but rather than like, again, like you said, a companion, not necessarily a friend, but like a
Mhm.
companion that's like next to you, that like you may have like good emotions, bad emotions, good times, bad times. It just depends on the day. Um, that's really deep. I like that. Also something that I learned from just looking up things, I think one thing you said earlier that I just wanted to echo, humor through grief, laughter and grief kind of bridges the gap between people because
Yeah.
sometimes we don't know how to tell each other how we feel. We don't know how to kind of, you know, in the moment, like we said, it's awkward. It's like sad. I'm sad, you're sad, I'm crying, you're crying. It's
Mhm.
like we both know what we're crying for. Like there's no like what is the gap? And sometimes even just like a joke can one make someone feel comfortable. If just makes you
Yes.
feel like at home. It's like, okay, like I get this is serious, but like life, this is life.
Mhm.
I'm kind of like acknowledging that like we're people. Like sometimes things are highs and lows, but then also like, and there's something I'm reading right now. It's creates like the intimate part of like I don't know. You kind of when you can, especially I think is one thing to like joke about grief to someone who's not going through that grief, but like
Mhm.
when you can joke about like me and one of my good friends, that's literally how we got through the death of my friend Juan Carlos of like we just joked through it all. And that sounds like really bad when you hear it on the surface like
Mhm.
we joked, we just had a good time. But no, it was like we were often sad. We were often just like, damn, like this fucking sucks.
Mhm.
Why
Yeah.
did you put us through this? How dare you? And
Mhm.
just kind of like again, just doing that because like how else are you supposed to get through it day by day? And I felt like because of that, me and her just have such a intimate relationship because we know the like the struggle of like kind of getting through and like finding the avenues of just like I hope trying to move forward,
Yeah.
which I think is important.
Yeah, for sure.
Another thing that I like that I read today is like sometimes humor through grief feel allows you to feel the idea that you can feel joy.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, yeah. That's a deep one. I remember that being a huge feeling of, like, I don't know if I'll ever feel joy again, like, genuine joy, and I still struggle with it in the way that I don't know if I'll ever feel joy now without that sadness that always comes up or creeps up behind it. I'm working through that still through therapy, but there was definitely a time where I was like, I don't know if I can ever, like, actually be happy, like, as a person, like, my best friend, my older brother, this person that I looked up to that was, like, in my life for so long and, like, was my number 1 fan, like, we were building on this really deep relationship now as adults. He's just gone. Like, he just died, and, like, that's just it, like, I just have to keep going with life. And so it was really that, like, not only did it allow me to feel that hope of, like, I can feel joy again, but it gave me a hope of, like, I can survive through this. So it definitely is like I've said it before, laughter and humor was like a lifeline when the waves of grief were really, really hard to get through. And so it allowed me not only to maintain connections with other people, connect with him, but also connect to myself and like my own humanity and my ability to survive through this really difficult situation that was happening. And so, yeah, I to me, and I'm sure to a lot of folks, even folks I've talked to about, you know, losing folks and grief, laughter can just really be that hope for survival and for continuing to live your life.
Mhm. I love that. I think that's all we got. It's like weird to say, but it's like that's all we got. And I like the idea that you felt like you had to like chip away at the grief to kind of find you again. I think I think when people pass away, like I do think a lot of people experience that like I'll never feel joy again. I'll never be happy again. How could I? Like
Mhm.
how dare I go on and be happy when this person that I loved is just gone and like most of the time and I mean Andres was just gone. Like literally he was here and then he was gone.
Mhm.
And legitimately like I remember like for me it was more so my grief, like the color of my grief was like anger. Like I felt so angry of like Andres was just such I remember like talking through him to him about so many things. One of the best things that I felt like I got from him and I it also inspired me is just like I felt like he set himself up for success. And I was like, oh, I want to get that one day. Cause I remember there was one day where he came home when we lived together and he's like, I bought a car. And I was like, oh, like, and like, it was funny because me, him, and Ben were all having like different problems at the same time. So I think I was
Mhm.
having car trouble. I think he was working at whatever art store that he just was like, I need to get out of here. And
Mhm.
Ben like couldn't find a job. So it was like, I got a car. This is the exciting thing. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. He's like, and I paid it off 100%. I'm like, oh shit, okay. And it was like stuff like that. And I remember talking to him about college, and he's like, yeah, like I feel proud that I don't have any debt and all these things. And it's like, oh, like a lot of people want so many like these. I wish my car was paid off. I'm sick of paying car debts. Or like I'm sick of like paying college tuition. And it's like Andres really did have the insight and like the work ethic to kind of just like get past all of that. And the thing that like hurt me the most is like I almost like went through like a regression like my own life of like what is it all for? Why? Like why does it matter? Why does it matter how much school loan debt I have? Like why does it matter? Like at the end of the day when I pass away,
Mhm.
how who cares how much I paid off? Who cares if it's at zero? It's gonna be all for nothing. And that was something I really had to kind of, again, like you said, chip away and like kind of find my way out of that. Cause like not only is the sad part of grief really hard to get out, but I think the angry part where I'm like, I don't understand this. Why? Like, I think I can understand if someone, does something bad and, something happens, or even if someone hurts them or anything. I'm like, this just happened and that's it. And I remember the way even I found out about it was just like, happenstance where I happened to be on Facebook and see something you posted, and
Yeah.
I happened to call Ben, and like he gave me the full rundown, and I'm like, oh, that sucks. And at the time, like I happened to not have a car, so I couldn't even get to Milwaukee the way that I wanted to, and it was like all these things I just felt so angry about. It was like it was really hard to kind of see past that, but I will say I think and kind of going to the point of this whole podcast was like finding just like the light. And I think the light for me was laughing with friends, having a good time with friends. I think we did like a game night in his honor, and that was like
Mhm.
so fulfilling for me. Or now, I guess like I don't know if you even know this, but like we used to play this game called Werewolf all the time. And
Mhm.
like whenever I play it, I just play the person who reads the rules and all that because that's what Andres did, and I like loved how he did it. I'm like, no, no one's ever gonna be as good as Andres, so I'm just gonna do it and show you guys how he used to do it because this is how it should be done. And like those were the moments for me where I'm like, okay, I can breathe, I can move forward, I can kind of again, like you said, exist next to this.
Yeah.
It's not gonna go away. It's not something I haven't even gotten myself to change my Facebook profile picture. It's
Mhm.
still me and Andres, and it's been 3 years, and I just every time I even think about it, because there was something I did recently where I'm like, "People are gonna think this is my boyfriend or something."
Yeah.
And I need to change this, but
The
I
king is
haven't because
loud.
I'm like, I just can't. Like, I'm like, I'm just not ready. I don't know. I'm not ready to do it. So it's just like every day is a struggle. Every day is like a journey. But even like moments like this, like talking about him and it just makes you like, okay, like there's life after
Mhm.
this. And for me, obviously not for him, but I think that's what he will want to. He will want us to kind of and just the humble person that I know that he will be like, no, like forget about me. Like I'm gone, like move
Yeah.
on. And in his honor, it's almost like, okay, I'm gonna try to at least like not forget about you, but I'm gonna try to at least like bury this part in a certain place in my mind or in my heart where like I keep you with me always, but like moving forward and like doing things in honor of him, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, for sure. I love that you brought up the anger part of grief because that's definitely a part that I didn't hear enough about, and that is so real for so many people to experience anger at the situation, like in total, but also at so many other circumstances. But I think even when I was also dealing with feeling really angry about the situation, almost feeling like the anger turned me into like a different person when I would laugh and when I would make jokes is when I would, again, feel like me. And so, yeah, again, the whole laughter and jokes become such an important part for me to bring myself back to who I was, or try and chip away, like you said, at like who I would be after that grief.
Also, I will say, like, another feeling that I feel like people don't touch on is guilt. Like, I think that was
Mhm.
another thing that, like, really hung over my head. There's, like, anger here, sadness here, guilt here, where I mean, even looking back, and I know that he probably didn't take anything personally, but, like, I think for me, the biggest thing is moving to Chicago was, like, a big guilt that I had because, 1, I left him at the JC. I brought
Mhm.
him there, and then I left him. I was like, "I'm out of here. Goodbye." So that was number 1, and then number 2 was that we actually think if the pandemic, I mean, obviously the pandemic happened, but if things hadn't happened with me where, like, I started dating someone and I felt bad, and I know he did not care, but I cared, where, like, they were always at our house, me, him, and Ben's house, and I was like, like, I feel like I don't want this to be an issue of, like, why is my boyfriend always here? So
Mhm.
I think at the time, I was like, I think it just makes sense for us to just get our own place, and I ended up moving out from where we lived, and I actually always regretted that too, because I think even if everything happened exactly the way it did, him passing away, I think I would have valued that time during the pandemic, just being together so much. And I think, yeah, that's something that I always think about. Like, I wish I didn't do that. Like,
Mhm.
literally, if I just waited 2 months, we would have been stuck together for however long, and
Yeah.
I would have got that valuable time that, like, you wouldn't get back. But then in the same vein, like, knowing him, I think, honestly, probably one of my biggest cheerleaders was him, and I'll never forget when he came to visit Chicago and being like, "Donnie, I'm so proud of you. You're doing everything you wanna do, and it makes
Mhm.
me happy." And I'm like, I know he's proud, but I feel so guilty because I wish, again, like, I just wish I had that extra time. And I think that's one of the things that, obviously, hindsight is 2020.
Mhm.
We all
Yeah.
wish we had extra time, like, just even one more day, one more second, one more minute, but it's just that's life.
Yeah. Guilt's a hard one. It definitely is. Still working through that one as well. But I think for me, what's helpful too is sometimes just shifting my perspective a little bit, which is a lot easier said than done. But in the same vein as like I feel guilty for the times I didn't get to spend with him or prioritize spending time with my brother. I also think about how I really value my time now with the people I love and my friends, my younger brother. Like I will value every second we get to spend together in a different way than maybe I would have had this not happened. So that's also, I think, an unfortunate gift of experiencing loss is you look at your time and your life and the love that you have to give a little bit differently.
I think that goes into my next, like, question that I wanted to ask. I feel like we could talk forever because I feel like there's so much to say. But I did wanna say, like, what do you think is the biggest thing that grief gave you, like, positive? Because you said, like, just valuing time, but is there anything else that you're like, "This taught me this?"
I think it's both positive and negative is that there's a bit of innocence and being naive about life that was taken away, and it was hard. I think one of the other big things that made it really hard, my personal grief, was experiencing it at 21, because 21 I feel was way too young, let alone my younger brother who was 17. But there is, I think, a sense of being naive to the realities of life, and one of them being death when you're young. And when you haven't experienced a loss at that kind of closeness, you may lose or hear of like great uncles or like people in your family, celebrities, things like that, a little bit more removed. But this was like in my face, my brother, my person. And so, yeah, I think it took away a little bit of that. And in the same breath, it really opened up this ability to feel my life in a way that is almost hard to describe. Like, there's a joy to coming home from work and like getting to watch TV and like experience like a boring day with nothing dramatic happening. I didn't have that perspective before. It was until my Friday night was disrupted by this phone call that I realized the value of what a boring Friday night could be. So I think it gave me a gift of perspective and a gift of realizing that life is super unserious and is kind of just like a journey we go through, and sometimes it's not as deep as maybe people think of. And to me, that's helpful because it helps me go through my day to day experiencing this grief of my brother not being here, of almost being like, yeah, it's unserious. I'll keep living, my life and going through the motion of things and knowing that like someday we'll be reunited in somehow. But yeah, I think perspective was the biggest gift of it really changed the way I saw life in relationships and just, my time, all of those things.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the biggest thing that like grief taught me, and not even just Andres, like I think like my friend Juan Carlos or my stepdad or just anyone is that like life is short. Truly, I think you never really realize how short life is until someone that you love is here today and gone tomorrow. Like you just like and like again gone where it's like they're not just here right now. They're gone like
Mhm.
forever. And I it's funny because I'm 29 now, and I think obviously this happened like I think it was 26 or right after I turned 26 or something like that. And one thing that people often ask me is like, 30 is coming, 30 is coming, 30 is coming. Are you scared? Are you scared? Are you scared? And like the one thing that, and I think Andres is probably the biggest like anchor in this. I always say like now, I'm like, I'm not scared. I am grateful. Like I'm grateful
Mhm.
that I get to see 30. Hopefully I get to see 30. I still got some time to get there. But like it's like I know people who didn't get to see that. And I think that's like something that I think about every day of like every day is just such a gift. And it's like whether I'm, fighting with friends or arguing with family or whatever, I always remember like to anchor myself and like every day is a gift. Don't let things linger. Don't,
Mhm.
like forget about the small moments. Really take the time to like if you love someone, tell them. Don't wait till tomorrow. Tell them today. Or I guess like another if we can go into a quick story, but like one of my I guess regrets with Andres, and I actually don't have a lot because really weirdly I learned the life is short thing from my friend who passed away when I was 18. And I do think, like, from my perspective, and I hope he felt the same way, like, I really did try to be, like, a great friend and, like, show up. I, like if I could tell you how many miles I put in my car just driving back and forth from Milwaukee to Chicago, especially in that time period, was a lot. But the last time I saw him, I don't exactly remember what day it was, but it was right before my birthday, and I remember so 2 things, which I guess this one's kind of funny, and I think this one thing I laugh about, is that I remember telling him how I wanted to break up with the person I was dating. And I remember when he passed away, I'm like, "No, I didn't even tell him that I did it. I broke up with him." Like he's like we talked about. But the second one was that like when after we saw each other, I remember us kind of being like, "Oh, like what are you gonna do after?" And he's like, "I'm going rock climbing or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm not coming." But I remember as I was leaving, I forgot my hat inside. So I like was like, "Okay, bye, Andres. I'm gonna grab my hat." So I went back inside, and like my biggest regret is just not hugging him because that was
Mm.
the last time I saw him, and it's just like moments like that remind me that like the little things are what's gonna matter in the end. Like if someone passed away tomorrow and I just text them I love them today, like despite how I felt, despite the grief, despite all of that, I will feel fulfilled and just like I did try. Like I tried to put that energy into them. It's like something that I really do take into consideration every day of like if I'm in town and somewhere, I'm gonna hit someone up. I'm gonna at least send a
Mhm.
message. I'm gonna at least try because I will regret if I don't. And I'm thankful for that gift that like he gave me, just kind of like to open my eyes, like to just like look around me and like there's people around you and just really sometimes you're moving so fast you forget to look at the people next to you. And I really do try because of that, truly.
Yeah. Funny enough, that reminds me, in the time after he passed, I was looking through his phone for like pictures and stuff to get ready for the funeral. And I found a notes app, and it was the last thing that he had written on his notes app. And it was just kind of, it was almost like a poem, but it was just like a bunch of things that like brought him joy. And I remember it had something like laughing with coworkers, doing art, eating a candy after work, going to the gym. And yeah, similar to you, it just reminds me like those things are actually so precious, and we're so lucky if we get the chance to do them on the daily. And that's not always a perspective that sometimes people have. Sometimes it's not like what they gain after grief as well, but definitely for me, it's like I find joy in such mundane little things. And like, I love that my life is not grand or anything, but I find a lot of joy in the things that maybe others wouldn't.
Hmm. The last I forgot about this quote. There's one thing that I want to do before we leave, but I wanted to say it out loud just for everyone to listen. Where like it says, laughter equals release. It's not avoiding grief, it's surviving grief. And I really related to that too, because I'm like, yeah, it's survival. Like again, like I've said it multiple times, like what else can you do if you can't laugh? Like if you can't, I mean, even if you just can't smile, like you're, I mean, I hate to say it, but like I feel like you're not gonna get through it.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, like I want to get through it because of the person I lost. Like not in spite of them, not to
Mhm.
prove it wrong. I just want to get through it because they will, I honestly, truthfully, like it sounds so simple, but like I want to get through it for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I hope that people, if you're experiencing loss or have experienced loss, are going through grief, have gone through grief, is in the process of grief, where like there is light at the end of the tunnel and you just have to find out how to get to it. And
Yeah.
like sometimes it's not as easy as walking straight through the tunnel. Sometimes you got to take some stairs or maybe take the subway or something. I don't know. But like you'll get there and you just have to try. Like you just have to work to get there. So I had the idea of this podcast. I decided to take a hiatus for July, but when I messaged you about this, I was like, oh, like I would love to like release this around the time of Andres' birthday.
Mhm.
So this is Andres' birthday episode, I guess. And I thought to end the episode, I would love to hear. I'll share first, but I would love to hear like your favorite memory of him.
Mm.
I think for me, my favorite memory of Andres was there's a lot. When we lived together, I guess this is a twofold. There was when I first moved in there, which they had just moved into, we didn't have Wi-Fi. So like our house was way in the back, so we didn't have connection. Like my phone couldn't connect to like internet. So it almost felt like we were living in like 2003. I don't know. But there was one day where I came home and all the lights were off, and he never told me anything. So I was like, the freeze blew. So I turned it all back on,
Mhm.
and he called me. He's like, Donnie, there's a fire in the house. And I'm like, wait, what? And he was like, did you turn the fuse back on? And I'm like, yeah. And he was like, no, she said not to turn it on because she was worried about one of the things starting a fire. So I felt bad because he was in the house and I left, but I turned the power back on
Mhm.
and started a fire in the wall. It all worked out. Nothing happened, but that was like funny to me when I'm like, wow, I almost took you out there.
Yeah.
So I just love that because I think quintessential us just not communicating with each other despite being in the same literally one room over. That one and then I guess a second similar, I think it was like literally just like the next day or something. At that same time he got a remote control skateboard.
Mhm.
And I remember being like, "Oh, I've never even heard of that. Like, how do you do it?" He's like, "Oh, I feel so safe on this thing. Like, you can just do it. You can go." And literally that day, he left and came back with a broken arm because he broke his arm
Yeah.
riding on the skateboard. And I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah. He tried to hide that from me. I remember that one.
Mhm.
Good stories. Let me see. I'll say 2 that really come to mind. One was he had already moved out to Wisconsin, and it was this summer before my freshman year in college. And there was a, like, fee that I had to pay for my dorm, and I had kind of procrastinated and left it to last minute, and at that time, it was credit card only, and my parents didn't have credit cards, so I was freaking out because I didn't know how I was gonna pay it, and I was just casual me, usual me, going into worst case scenario. I was like, "I'm not gonna be able to pay this. They're gonna give my spot to somebody else. I'm gonna have to drop out of college. I'm never gonna get a job." Like, spiraling, really.
Mhm.
And I remember it was about to be midnight here in California, and I pick up the phone, and I'm like, "I'm just gonna call him, like, see if he'll answer." I call Andres, and I'm, like, freaking out, like, crying to him on the phone, just being like, "What am I gonna do?" And he goes, "I'm just gonna I'll send you my credit card info." He's like, "I just need you to stop crying, like, it's not that big of a deal." And it really brought me back to, like, reality, and that really, I think, for me, shows how much I depended on him for a lot of things as my older brother. I don't think I realized it until now that, like, I definitely went to him for a lot of problems, but just how, like, he was so, like, calm and, like, knew what to do and, like, did it, no questions asked, like, I could depend on him no matter what, and yeah, I just that really, like, for me shows, like, the relationship that we had and how much of a good brother he was, and also, I like, how he would calm me down when I would kinda spiral into mayhem. And another thing I think that really I miss so much and was my favorite part of our relationship is we would just be on the phone for hours just talking about, like, pop culture and movies and, like, politics and all this stuff, and it just felt like we got each other on that level, and I think it's rare to find people that you can talk to about all these things and, like, maintain neutrality, not, like, get mad at each other, and with him, it was like we were teaching each other things, sharing opinions, and just really, like, yapping together at the end of the day, and so that was, like, one memory. I remember the last phone call I had with him the Thursday before the Friday he got into the hospital, and we had, like, a 2-hour phone call where we just yapping away together, and so those are one of my favorite memories with him.
What a good guy. I miss him so much. Just like yeah, again, like life teaches you that like just to cherish those things and hear even that about him. I knew like also like such a caring person and such a like giver. Like he just gave.
Yeah.
I could think of moments where I like polar vortex. He literally came to pick me up from the bus station and it's like negative 35 outside
Yeah.
and just always doing stuff. And I really appreciate about that about him. And I also appreciate this you and your family. I just wanted to like kind of give you guys props and just kind of I think the one sometimes hard thing about grief is kind of going through it on your own
Mhm.
and the one thing that I have appreciated, specifically from you, but also like from the rest of your family, just like the fact that you guys kind of open up yourself and you didn't have to, like, you didn't have to kind of go. Like, when your dad came when I went to visit the cemetery, I thought that was so sweet. And like, I didn't even know like he was coming. Like, I remember you saying like your little brother might show up. And I was
Mhm.
like, oh, like your dad was there. And he just kind of sat there and talked with me. And he was like, "Can we take a picture together?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, yes!" And I don't know, that makes me feel closer to him. Number one, just like kind of being close to you and getting to know your family. But two, it just like shows like for me, like I'm not alone. I'm not
Yeah.
alone in like this grieving process. I'm not alone in missing him. And I hopefully, like I know you have your family, but even from like his friends, like you're not alone either. Like if you ever want to chat about him or I mean, we've gotten dinner and lunch and talked about him. I love those moments because again, I just feel closer to him and in a way that I never have before, which I appreciate.
Thank you. Yeah, and I completely agree. I think keeping in contact with people who knew him and loved him and miss him is so I don't know, it just helps you feel less alone and reminds you that, like, he was this great person that so many people miss, and a part of that is, like, I'm lucky to experience this grief in a way because it shows that, like, I loved him a lot and we had and he loved me and he was just that special to me.
Grief is a sign that what is it called? Like Grief is love with nowhere to go,
Yeah,
like, because they're not there to receive it anymore.
yeah.
Last question for you before we go. Do you have a message for people who are grieving, who may want, honestly, who may want to use humor, who may not want to use humor, but just like, what is your message to them to just how to get through it, how to keep going day by day?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I would say sometimes it's not even day by day, it's hour by hour. Find those pockets of joy or whatever makes you feel like you, whatever makes you feel a little bit normal. I think sometimes grief can make you feel a little bit crazy or like you're experiencing something super abnormal that nobody else has. Finding those pockets of connection with other people, whether that be through laughter, through sharing stories, through crying, whatever that looks like for you, I think can be really, really helpful in just getting through grief hour by hour. I think the guilt thing that you mentioned is really important. Laughter doesn't mean that you're not hurting. And I know that, first and foremost, they can coexist, they can live together. And then, yeah, I'd say for me, if anyone is, like, wondering how they can utilize laughter or humor or how it can be helpful, it can definitely be something that tethers you to your humanity, to give you hope, just hope of survival, hope of continuing to live and honoring your person, and just a reminder that, we can get through difficult and painful things, and laughter can be a tool that can aid us through that.
I love that, and we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciated this. Also, I could talk to you forever. Like, it's been an hour, and I'm like, it feels like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you the next episode. Bye.
Your typical podcast.